Hey folks, welcome to the stream. I believe it's day 68 or something like that. And today we are going to have a look at the weird where is our parasite monster? There he's there, right? What we're doing is having a look at this guy today. The guy in the middle of all that yellow, this guy here. Okay, because we have him going on fire, right? We can do it by hitting him. And there we go. That's pretty nice. Okay. But when we shoot him, things don't quite go how we expect. So we're going to have a look at that for today. And then we shall probably move on to some other you can see that he's basically going mental. Okay, so what I'm going to do in the first instance with this is we're going to look at the wildlife, right, and we're going to look at our deer, and we're going to look to see how our collision is set up. Okay, and we're going to have a look at our mesh and check its collision and physics. Okay, so we're going to do the same with our monsters, or in particular our parasite guy. Okay. And you can see here, we can check on our physics and collision. So probably the best way to do this is to actually have them side by side. So we make sure that these are right. So I'm going to probably think that this should be set to false, because all the other settings are the same by the looks of it. Right, we're going to have a look at this. And we're going to have a look at this. And these are all the same. Okay, so the only difference that I can see, now this was working before, but we have changed that physics impulse thing. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that. Right, so we'll have these side by side again. Right, now our dude is, as you can see, wandering about. And you can see that he's now sliding about like crazy. And I don't know why. And the other interesting thing is when we're doing this, we're going to add a breakpoint, right? Now, it seems to be something, it's, right, okay, resume. It seems to be something to do with hitting the capsule. Right. So let's have a look at the capsule. Collision preset is pawn only. Right, I'm thinking that this is the issue. Yep. Pawn. Okay. Compile that. And we're just going to check this one against all the others. So it's ignore block, visibility, that one. Right, so these are now the same. So this in effect should now be cool. Okay. And there we have it. We've already solved our first issue. And when we do that, we should get our character movement component. Can we deactivate it? Yes, we can. So that should solve any problems that we have. We might need to do this first though, but we'll worry about that later. We'll see if it actually works. Right. That's weird again. Interesting. So there seems to be something not quite right here. That works. Okay. Maybe that was a little weird one. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to swap these around. Right. We'll test it one more time. And there we go. Cool. Now, what I was expecting okay, we'll not worry about that for now. Hi, Aladius. How this parasite monster will work? Well, it depends what you mean. He will wander around, and if he spots you, he will come at you, but if there's a fire lit and he sees a fire, that takes precedence and he runs away from fire, right? These will spawn in and out, so when they're spawning out, they check to see if they have a line of sight to the player, in which case they won't spawn out, right? Because then you would just get them disappearing. And the opposite is true, or sorry, the same thing applies if you spawn them in, right? So if it tries to spawn in, what it basically does is, if it's got a line of sight to the player, they won't spawn in, and then they'll try to find a new spot to see if they can spawn in or not. And if they don't find a new spot after 5 attempts, then they just don't spawn in. Okay, so you won't get any monsters spawning in front of your eyes because it doesn't allow it. Okay? And you won't get things spawning out before your eyes because they won't spawn out if they can see you and you can see them. Okay, so they can come and kill you, but they're not like, they won't be able to run as fast as you under normal circumstances, right? So they're more like a, let's say, a Walking Dead type threat. That if there's enough of them, they can corner you, but one of them in the distance is not going to be a problem. The other thing is you can shoot them, but if the arrow is not on fire, then it won't kill them. It'll just sort of knock them back a bit. And by knock them back a bit, I means basically it'll stop them for a second while it plays an animation of them getting basically hit. Right? But it takes an arrow on fire to kill them. Okay? So yeah, That's how it works. So you shall see from here, and this is updating the fire effect, right? So this is what I was working on yesterday, which is working fine. And we really want to rename this. Fire. I suppose it's accumulation. Right, because these numbers gradually go up. Right, and what I'm going to do with this actually is tidy it up. Right, so we'll drag these out. We'll move this. Right, I'll delete this. We'll do that. We'll drag that down like that. Right, we shall do that and that. Then we shall do that and that. Then we shall do that. Right. And that gives us our nice little thing. And in fact, we'll tidy this up as well while we're at it. Right. Do that. Drag that up. Then straighten to reboot node. And straighten to reboot node. And there we go. Right, so that's nice and tidy now. Okay. So you might think it's complex, but that's it here. It's actually in our, delete that. It's actually in our spawner where all the fun starts. Right. Now the interesting thing is that this doesn't seem to be fire and destroy self. Right, but I'm guessing that's in the AI. Right. So if we were, for example, animations, where parasite AI, if we go to the behaviour tree, this is the behaviour tree here. Is dead. Right. So basically we've got a few things here. In that we walk, for example, find a new random location, but the thing is that if we spot a fire, we move it away from the fire, and then basically with the dead we need another task, right? So we can duplicate this. Destroy self, right? So in effect what we'll do here is we'll wait and we know that we've got our animations, right? So it's death, etc. And the death one, I believe, right, if we check our animation blueprint, right, we can check which, you see these are all, well, wait a minute, we've got different lengths, right? We've got this one, death anim, we've got AS zombie, death anim, so we've got this one, which is 3.33, right? And then we have this one, which is 2.96. Okay, so basically all we need to do is give it 4 seconds. In fact, even the 5 seconds would be absolutely fine, right? And then the next thing we're going to do is destroy self, right? Now we don't necessarily need any of this stuff, right? We don't need that. We don't need that, right? We don't need that. And we don't need that. Okay. And funnily enough, we don't need any of that either. Or that. Right, this is the most simple thing in the world. Right, we cast to that. And actually, funnily enough, we'd probably be better in the end doing this as an interface call, and then we can just do it to monster base. Right, so we cast to monster base, right? Now the interesting thing here is that if we go to monsters, then we go to BPI monster, destroy self. Perfect, I've already set this up, right? I'm one step ahead of myself here. Right, so we go into parasite, blah 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 blah. and then we say destroy self message. Okay. We save that. Then we go into this and into the event graph. And event destroy self. We basically duplicate that and that goes in there. Ah, no it doesn't. In fact it does. Right, because it's actually in the parasite as well. Right, because this is it here, destroy self. Ah, so probably I don't even need this. Yeah, I probably don't even need this. We'll test it. Right, so, boom. Doesn't seem to be destroying self. Maybe we do need this. Okay, so first thing we'll do is check it actually hits here. Right, and then we'll check to see what it's actually doing. We could actually, you know what we could do? We could actually say despawn. We'll leave that as an option. You see, that's a weird one. A little bit of a bug in there somewhere about that. Right. Right, so basically we're not setting the blackboard, it looks like. Okay. apparently we're not. Why, thank you, Screen Apple. I'm guessing that this isn't being set, right? So basically, when we do this, what part? This set is dead, right? We're doing it here, we're doing it in the animation instance, but we're not doing it in the blackboard. Okay. So if we get the controller right, then we cast to AIC parasite. Now blackboard, whoops. So we get the blackboard, and we're going to set a bool. Make literal, right, and is dead. We're going to set that to true. Then we're going to say is dead. Okay, so we're basically doing that. Now yeah, that should work. I'm trying to think of what should happen first, but the animation blueprint is going to play it anyway when we shoot it. Right. You'll notice we'll hit destroy self. Step into. Ah, that's interesting. Because I think that hit true. Yes, it did. Okay, that's why it's not despawning. Okay. Now, we're obviously going to have to do another check on this. Right. But in the meantime, we'll just do destroy actor again. Right. But just to keep things obvious, what I might actually end up doing here is doing like a how it died, so that we can say allow despawn even if it's in front of the player, right? Because actually, you know what we can do? We can say is active. Right, so we can delete that. Because we turn the character movement off, right? If otherwise we don't, if they're just wandering about and it's the event manager that's doing it, right? Then we can basically, we know that the character movement is still on. If they get shot, then we switch it off anyway, right? So if we branch here, so if it's active, we carry on, and if it's false, we go straight to here. Okay, and that should do it nicely. See, there's a little bug there. I need to find out what that is, but that's not what we're testing right now. Alright. So there we go. And it destroys self. Right, so we step into, step over, and this should be, yeah, this component is false because I've deactivated it. Right, when we basically want them to stop moving at all, right, we just basically do that. So there we go. Now we obviously could, we've got the arrow. Hi Medgard, how you doing, bud? How are you today? How is everybody today? More to the point. Yes, we have implemented it and amended it and created a new asset out of it. Right? So we're using an amended version of it on this guy, right? So you'll notice that it's this one here. Now, I need to message the guy that wrote this, by the way, just to find out and confirm if what I think is true. Right? So what we basically did was, this is the original, right? But what I actually did was create 3 new parameters right, that are attached to the spawn rate, right? Because if we look at, this is original, right? You'll see that there's no extra variables or anything. So you basically just set up spawn rate by typing a number in here. Okay, but I've done it so it's now a parameter. Okay. So you can see here that this doesn't do that. Then the way I've implemented it is in our zombie, right, when they get hit by a fire arrow, right, it resets these parameters, then activates this, activates our Niagara system, then basically it does an alpha from 0 to 1. We multiply it by a factor, and we basically update the flame, embers and lava spawn rate, and we've basically taken out the smoke. Okay, now we could add the smoke back in, but that's the point here, right? And then what we did is, the original asset is for a skeletal mesh. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if you could burn down the house, which is a static mesh. So I basically wrote a version of it and amended it so that it works on a static mesh instead of a skeletal mesh. Right? So even if we don't use this in real time, this would actually be kind of cool for like cinematics and stuff. Right, you can see that our building is on fire. Right, and if we look in here, like, we can basically switch this up. Right, and we can have less of these. Then, like, for example, what we could do in here, because it's we could do initial particle, right? And then what we could actually do is have the sprite a bit bigger. So we could say like 25 to 50. Save that. Yeah, you just add emitter. You just add a light emitter to the thing. Right, see, light renderer. So if you click that, you can make it add light and a radius and stuff like that. Right, so I could make these even bigger, right? You can literally do what you want, right? I mean, what you could do if you really, really wanted to, well, there you go, we could actually multiply this out. don't know what you mean. Right, so we could do that, but I think that's pushing it. Yeah, it's pushing it a little bit. I think you'd get away with just a little bit less than that. It was, remember, it was at 2. So, in actual fact, you might... Yeah, how about that? It's pretty cool. Yeah, so there's just a little bit of... You could actually, if we set this back, right, you would probably be better changing it where I changed it in the first place. Right? So in the initialized particle, you could basically change the size of it here. Right, so you could make it like, let's say 30 to 75. Right, we're getting to the, I think we're getting to the reaches there of, yeah, it looks okay. Right, we've cut the embers down. Right, but in effect we could be doing with a few more embers now. Right, so if we put this up to, let's see, 100, maybe we need a bit more now, 200. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to see them, to be fair. Yeah, you can see them. Maybe need to be a bit closer to see them, but yeah, you can see them. But yeah, so we've managed to basically create another asset out of the free assets that we can use on something that asset didn't actually do, right? But we've amended it, and as I said, we might not use this in game, right? But for like a cutscene where there's a village burning down, you could screen, but it would be a fairly complicated process, but you can do it. But yeah, I mean, the point of me doing this was two things. Number one, to see if I could do it, and number two, to show that you don't necessarily need to use the free assets and as stock, right? There might be an asset there that you quite like, but it doesn't quite do what you want, and there's nothing to stop you going in and changing it, doing what you actually do want it to do. Right, now there was one thing that I needed to speak to the guy about, right? And the thing about it is, right, if you apply right, let's get I think I had a wolf here, didn't I? Yeah, this wolf, right? Now, let's open him up and have a look. Right? And he's got a Niagara system attached to him, right? But the problem, well, let's change it to that one, right? You can see there that, you know, it's pretty goddamn strong, right? Now you'll notice here that if we don't actually have that parameter, that's okay. Okay, we can demonstrate it anyway, right? Here, you'll notice that most of the embers are coming off the head, right? And that's because the head has the most triangles in the model, right? And so basically it's a law of probability, right? If 50% of the triangles make up the head, then it's going to apply 50% of the particles on the head and only 50% to the body, right? So what I was trying to do yesterday was to try and filter out some of the bones so that, or I'll give you a better example, right, of what I was trying to do, and I couldn't get it to work. And I think it's because the actual particle system yes, you can look at it like that, right? Look at it this way, right? If your model has 2000 vertices, right, and 50% of those vertices are in the head because of the detail, right, then there's a 50% chance that it's going to be one of the head vertices that it selects when it randomly selects a vertex, right? So what Niagara has, if we look at the system, right, is when you're doing the mesh thing, right, you can select triangles, bones, sockets, etc., right? So basically you could just select the main skeleton, right? And that would give you a more even spread when it spawns particles, okay? So look at it this way, you could deselect all the fingers, right? Because obviously the fingers are going to take up a lot of vertices. You could disable some of the head, or you could use it a different way, which I was trying to do yesterday, but I couldn't get it working, and I think it's because a couple of the scripts that the guy's using are bypassing these particular overrides, right? Now I'll let you see this in our, let's see this, right? Now if I look at this in the skeletal mesh, I can set filtered bones, right? And I can actually pick the bones to use or not use in the filtered sockets, right? So you can actually tell it which bones to use and which sockets to use or which not to use, right? And I don't know why it does this, right? Man. Yes, it gives you more control of it. Right, but the point being that you can actually select the bones and the sockets that you want, right? Now, this isn't quite 100%. There's an interesting thing. Don't know why it's doing this. Well, that doesn't matter because at the end of the day, the particles are travelling in different directions, so, and they would come out the mesh, right? So it would look exactly like if you spawned them on the mesh, right? Because it's pretty much the same thing, right? And what you got to remember is a lot of this, it's confusing to the eye, and that's why it works, because there's so much going on that it kind of, if you look at the wolf, right, there's so much going on there that you can't really tell, and all your eye really sees is the effect, right? You don't really know if the particles are spawning on the mesh or inside the wolf or whatever, right? You never catch that detail, right? All we see when we look at this looks like it's a fiery wolf, right? With a cool effect on it, right? That's all you really see. I mean, probably if you looked at every single thing, there's going to be weird stuff going on, but you're never going to be able to look that close up, right? In reality. Right, this is, see these things that are, that's the lava thing, right? Which I'm not really that keen on. Well, Screen Apple, it was free on Tuesday, you can still get it. It's all the different ones, the different Niagara effects. So you can go and download it and then just pop it on your guy and that's it, done. As I said, the things that I've done, I've extended it so that we've got parameters for each one so that I can control the amount of flames, the amount of embers, and the amount of smoke in real time, okay? And with the static one, I've amended it so that it goes onto a static mesh instead of a skeletal mesh, right? Which might have sounded pretty simple, which it was, but it's not quite as simple as you think, right? But yeah, it's pretty cool. But right, here's my point. This was my point. My point was this: if I could have got, let's say, it only to spawn on certain bones, which it certainly looks like you can do, right? for example, what you could then do is if you've got a character like this, right, you could spawn the stuff only where these yellow growths are. Like, so on his head you could spawn like the flowers and stuff or whatever, right? And then you could tell it on the leg here and on the arm here, and then say don't spawn the particles anywhere else, right? So you could say on this arm, on the lower arm, on the lower right leg, on the head, the shoulders, and on the back, right? So then those growths would be basically, it would look organic and plausible, right? So it would be plausible because it's obviously this infection area is causing the things to spawn, right? That was my thoughts on it and how to do something cool with it, but unfortunately it wasn't working. Now on the actual, if we look into the actual Niagara system, it's got these two module scripts, and I think these are bypassing the filtered list of bones and stuff, right? Because it's basically taking the whole skeletal mesh again, right? And doing this. Okay, so I might ask the guy who made this if that is the case. Okay, so I think these two scripts are basically negating the filtered list of bones or whatever, right? That's my thesis. Anyway, I'm going to go and grab a cigarette, guys. If you're enjoying the content and haven't already, then hit the like and subscribe. Check out the description for links to Discord, for the game, for my personal Discord, plus Patreon, and my previous game on Steam. I shall be back in about 4 minutes. Don't go anywhere, folks. Okay guys, we're back. Right, let's have a look at Medgard's comment. So, as in Devlog, you could paint the model and get vertex colour and spawn particles. Yes, but that would take a good bit of amendment. Well, it's just a different way of doing it. You'd need to pass that into Niagara. Right? A much simpler way to do it would be with the bones. Right? Because basically that's what you're doing if you're doing specific areas. Right? Bones or the other one, which I can't remember. Sockets. Yeah, what you can do as well is you can do it by sockets. So you could get this animation, you could get this character and then add sockets to the specific areas that you wanted, and then move those sockets into position. Right? So you could basically add a socket here, then just name them as, you know, basically any of the sockets that you want are the actual spawn points. And then you could just copy and paste the sockets that you've just created into the thing. Right, and that's what I actually done with this, I think. So I would be able to actually show you that when I was trying to get this working yesterday. Right, if I go to here, right, you will notice that I've created a socket here. Right, now I can move that. Yes, yeah, I tried both. I'm always ahead of you, Medgard, right? I'm just always ahead of you on this. Right, so basically you could create sockets and place them right on top of the areas that you want, and then just get those as a filtered list of sockets that you could then add to your selection, and then that would work just as well, or it should, right? Probably what I need to do for this is to get the base one, right, and basically manually recreate it, but don't do the scripts, and see if I can get it working on the sockets and bones. Right, so basically manually recreate this, except don't create any of the scripts along with it. Okay, and see if that will work as well. Okay, anyway, what I was wanting to do is what we were talking about, and we might start this here, is to create weather systems. Okay, and what I was going to do was have a weather system like as a trigger, basically wander around the map. But then I thought, well, what's the point of that? Right, because basically what you're trying to do is create, all I'm thinking of now is to, like, every X number of minutes in the game, find out if we trigger a new weather system, right? Which means that we basically change up all of the weather settings, right? So for example, if we look at its infinity weather, right, this thing here, okay, what we want to do is basically set up all of these things, like the atmospheric settings, right? And then what I thought was, well, probably the best way to do this, right, is to have a data table of different weather systems, right? So we could have like a light snow, we could have light snow, heavy wind, we could have medium snow, we could have no snow but blah blah blah, if you get what I'm getting at. And then there's as I said, a percentage chance each minute or two that we fire it, right? Rather than have something that's going to take up processing time, we could just see if we actually change the weather conditions at any particular time. Okay, so the best place to do it is probably in our event manager, right? So with that in mind, what we could do, we need a begin play. If we don't already have one. Yeah, we've got one. And you'll notice here we've already got dynamic sky. But what we want is probably an infinite weather. Okay. Now remember, the dynamic sky gives us the time. Okay. But we're not going to worry about that for now. What I'm actually going to do here is, I'm going to go into our event manager now. I'm just spitballing this off the top of my head, so you'll have to bear with me on this one, guys. Having said that, I usually spitball everything off the top of my head, so what am I talking about? But anyway, right, so in our event manager, right, in the same place, right, we're probably going to have, let's create a new structure. Oops, I nearly spilled my coffee everywhere. Right, and we'll call it struct weather system. Okay. And what we'll call it is, well, what we'll say is description, right, and that's just going to be a string. Then we're probably going to have infinity weather. Right? And is it a weather controller? Or is it each of these? I'm guessing that this weather controller controls everything, right? So if I create a data table, right? Let's have a look to see what it gives us access to. Data table, come on. And we say weather system, right? And we say DT underscore weather system, right? And let's say we add one, right? So we don't want the controller, right? What we really want is, let's say, precipitation, and yeah, we want the structure. Right? And atmosphere, and we can say atmosphere, okay. Then if we save that and we go into here, we can set these up, right? Okay, and then if we want to implement it, all we need to do, right, is copy these across into the structure of the controller, right? So for example, we've got 2000 precipitation. Now I'm pretty sure that that is actually the snow, okay? So for example, if I go into here, you'll see we've got precipitation, right? If I up the particle count here, right, to let's say 5,000, it doesn't do jack. So that's not the thing. Okay. So I can only guess now that the infinity weather, Dr. O plays. Hi Dr. O, how you doing, bud? Yes, I read the chat. If we get the ultra dynamic weather, right, here is our spawn check. So if I go 4,000, yeah, that's much heavier. Okay, Dr. O, fire a question away. Right, so it's actually this that's doing our snow. Okay? Now, I'm pretty sure this is also right. Let's take a look at this. Right, I don't know what difference that actually makes. Right, but we can generally get, so I'm making a multiplayer procedurally generated game that is SCP-3008. You've got a problem. You'd have to do it in the loading stage, right? And by infinite, I take it that is it infinite to begin with, or are you building it out? Is what I mean, right? Because if you were to make a certain size, then you could calculate where the nav mesh bounds should be, right? But you'd have to get it to do it on the fly. So you'd have to make sure that your nav mesh is dynamic, right? Which is just in project settings, right? So if you go to I'm pretty sure you've probably done this already, right? But one of the issues is if you've got I don't know what SCP-3008 is either, to be honest. But yeah, so you need the real-time nav, right? Okay, but how many NPCs have you got? I'm taking it I'm taking it that if you've got an infinite map, you must have infinite number of NPCs. Is that correct? Yeah, that's your problem. That's your problem. You need to find a way. You need to find a way to check to spawn them in and out where required, or switch their AI on or off when required, right? So what you need to do is basically get some kind of system that wherever your player is, you spawn in NPCs, right? And if they get a certain distance away from the player, then they spawn out. Hi, Abdulaziz, how you doing, bud? Right, if that was me, there is no way, under any circumstances, you should be even thinking about the numbers you've got there. Just make it impossible, right? It's just not going to happen. Again, you're going to have to do it that NPCs spawn where players are and despawn where players are not, right? So well, thanks, Abdulaziz. Yeah, the Dr. O, you're going to have to get the server to despawn stuff, right? Wherever players are not. It's as simple as that, okay? It's kind of the same as I've watched a few tutorials on it before. It's basically when a chest opens, right? A player opens a chest in one part of the map, right? It doesn't open the chest for every player, right? Under your oh god, right, wait a minute here. Basically under your replication. Okay, Dr. O, but in your replication, right, check there's a variable that's set to about 110,000 or something like that, and that is the distance that it becomes replicated to that player, right? So check that out. I can't remember exactly what it's called off the top of my head. If we look, just so we answer the question for ourselves, okay? If we look at, let's say this, right? Now, if you look under, this is it here, there's net call distance, and there's net load on client, and this relevancy, right? What you do is you basically set the relevancies to whether objects are relevant to the player or not, right? And this is where you can do it. And I'm pretty sure, you see this square of the max distance from the client's viewpoint that this actor is relevant and will be replicated. It's this thing here. You can tell things like a chest is not going to open on this guy's machine if it's not relevant to him, okay? So if that player is like 200 miles away, just as a number, right? If that guy is 200 miles away, then the chest that opens 200 miles away is just not relevant to that player. So it basically doesn't do the animations or do the actual thing. What it does is basically when he runs up to it, it'll basically be open, right? But that's what Dr. O needs to look at, and then finding a way to spawn in and out the NPCs, because there's no way you're going to get away with running 1520 NPCs with individual AIs, right? It's just not going to happen. Especially, and I learned this from my tower defense game, right? That the more NPCs you have, the more the nav mesh has to be recalculated for every single AI, okay? So basically, what happens is, if you, let's say you're plonking down an object that affects the AI, the nav mesh, right? So if you put up a town square, right, in the middle of your town, and it basically creates a roundabout or something, right? What happens is, it would maybe be okay, well, it'd be okay from a nav mesh point of view for Total War, right? Because the nav mesh on Total War pretty much doesn't change, right? So you're not trying to recalculate the nav mesh all the time. But as I said, if you place a town square down that blocks off a section of town, right, every single AI has to recalculate where it is in relation to that new set of nav mesh data, right? So you've got to be clever about it, of how you do it, right? As I said, I learned this from doing a tower defense game that actually does the nav mesh thing. And then you've got another problem, right? You've then got a problem that the player can block NPCs into an area, right? So let's say you've got 400 NPCs all in the town square, right? And you block it off, then all of those NPCs basically can't move out of that area. Right, now that might be something you want to do, but generally probably not. And it becomes a bigger problem in a tower defense game, right? Because you don't want the player to block off a route to, where they go, right? You don't want the player to be able to totally block that off, or basically they've won the game instantly, right? So in a game like, for example, my game or Defense Grid, it doesn't allow you to do that, right? It makes sure that there's always a route from A to B for the NPCs, right? And if you place a building down and it blocks it, then it immediately just removes it so that it opens it up again, right? Now, the likes of Defense Grid does it slightly different, in that basically, if you block off the route, then everything becomes navigatable, right? It basically is just a flat, straight out nav mesh that doesn't block anything. So all the monsters just walk through buildings and stuff, right? Which is a different way of handling it, and it kind of makes sense, right? But hi, Quit. How are you doing? So yeah, what were we doing? Oh yeah, a weather system. So what we need is an infinity weather system, and not this precipitation thing, right? So we're going to say inf weather, and no, it wasn't. It was ultra dynamic, wasn't it? It was ultra dynamic weather. Okay. And now, if we went to here, you'll notice that we can do all our... Ah. Right. So, the interesting thing here is, if we go to infinity weather, right, what has it got? Right, it's got the structures, okay? It's got... Ah, that's the wrong one. It's ultra dynamic. It's not infinity weather. It's the ultra dynamic weather. Right? And this ultra dynamic sky. Right? And I'm hoping... Configuration manager. Oh, it's an this is a editor widget. Ooh. Right. Okay, so this might help us. Right. Now the question is, it's got a structure. I think I need... Okay. UDS and UDW state. Right, these are interesting. But I think I'm going to have a look at this is an editor widget, right? That's alright. That's cool. Setting up the sky, setting the clouds, blah 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 blah. Right, so this is not what we're looking for, right? Because that is the dynamic sky. The one we're interested in is the weather, right? So basically this. So I'm just wondering if we can create certain conditions, right? So I'm going to have a look through this. I'm guessing that you guys probably will not want to see that, but I'm hoping that what this does is create a configuration file that we can then save in a data table, and we can basically create different weathers. So like basically a blizzard and a wipeout or a whiteout. We can create like spring and light snow. We can create a no snow but lots of wind. Just basic various setups. And if we can create them in this, that would be fantastic. Right? I don't know if we can or not. Right, but I'm going to have a read at that. But it looks like we might be able to do, it might do some. Right, that we can create this ultra dynamic sky and create some different configurations. Then save them into the project and then load them at random intervals, right? So that it looks like you're getting different weather systems passing by. Right? So as I said, depending on what day it is, or what, let's say, what season it was, you could have like 5 in winter, you know, for clear, light snow, medium snow, heavy snow, white out, with varying amounts of wind, and then you could create the same thing well, this comes from an asset from the store, right? And it would appear that I don't need to write any code, right? Because the asset does it all. But I'm just finding out what I can do to expand on it, right? Where, as I said, at specific random periods of time, I want the weather to change, right? Now, I don't want it to be random. What I want it to be is within a set number of configurations, depending on season, depending on maybe the last one, etc., right? And if this has got this, if this configuration manager basically gives me the ability to make all of these different configurations in a very simple way, then that's really good, right? Because then I can just basically load up that configuration at any time, right? Now, I don't know how it's going to save it. Right, now, what I could do as well is basically, well, it's not going to be this, but under here, if I look for our ultra dynamic weather system, right? These are obviously all the basic controls, right? I could create a structure that's exactly like this, right? This is what I'm saying, that I could create the exact same structure and then just basically load it into the Infinity weather system, right? But obviously, if it's already got a system to do it, then I want to use that, right? So you've got this rain and snow particles, right? Then you've got this variation thing. Then you've got this, and then the lighting, and then the sound effects, and the sound occlusion, plus the landscape stuff. So if these are already created for me, then that's going to obviously save me a heck of a lot of work, right? The screen droplets and the wind, then you've got the wind direction, right? So all of these different things, right? If it creates configuration files that I can just load in straight into the ultra dynamic weather, and that will instantly change the weather, then that's going to be fantastic, right? That's going to make life a crap ton easier. So I'm going to call it there, guys. If you've enjoyed it, hit the like and subscribe. It was nice to see some new people in today in the chat. Abdul Aziz, and obviously Dr. O, was it? Was another guy, Dr. O. Nice to see the old guard back. Quit Abandon, Medguard, thank you for the comments, because it always keeps it interesting for me to see the questions and what you guys are up to. So I'll be back at 8 PM Central tonight, which is in 4 hours time, where she'll be doing some more stuff. I'm going to have a look at this weather configuration. So check out the description for links to the game's Discord, my personal Discord, Patreon, and my previous game on Steam. There's also a link to our new website, so have a look at that. In the meantime guys, thanks for watching, bye bye for now.